Hello everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome to another one of my videos. Today I'm going to be reviewing Mega Man Zero for the Game Boy Advance. I'm going to be playing this on the Wii U Virtual Console. I somehow managed to lose my copy of the original Game Boy Advance, which meant for this review I got to go back and play the game again on its original difficulty. Yay! This game can be really hard, but it's really fun. Also, when it comes to the Mega Man Zero story, it kind of got a little screwed up. Kenji Inafune wanted to go from X5, which kind of concludes it with Zero dying, right into the Zero series, where Zero would find himself revived 100 years in the future to find out that the world has gone to hell, and that he has to keep his promise that he made to X at the end of X4.
Zero, if I become a Maverick, you have to take care of me.
Unfortunately, Capcom wanted to keep the Mega Man X series going because it was still making money, and they didn't like the idea of Zero out to kill X, so a few story changes were implemented, and it does make some of the backstory to Mega Man Zero convoluted, but I'll save that more towards the sequels, especially Mega Man Zero 3. But let's concentrate now on the story to Mega Man Zero. The story in Mega Man Zero is set up 100 years after Mega Man X5, but I've already stated that. What has happened in that 100 years is that Mega Man X has taken the survivors from the Eurasia crash and built a city called Neo Arcadia. The rest of the world is a wasteland, but Neo Arcadia is a utopia in the middle of it. Things have seemed to be going fine over the last 100 years until a recent energy shortage has managed to make the government of Neo Arcadia start to declare all reploids their Mavericks, whether or not these reploids have ever done anything or not. A young scientist named Seal has taken a bunch of reploids out into the wasteland to try to protect them. However, they are constantly harassed by Neo Arcadia forces. One day, Seal learns that there's a rumor that X's old partner, Zero, still exists in a cave somewhere, and this brings about one of the best opening scenes in a video game I think I've ever seen. You just see Seal's forces being chased down and just utterly destroyed by Neo Arcadia forces until she gets cornered in a room that has a red reploid in it and decides to activate it. At that point, Mega Man Zero is awoken, and he just rips through the Neo Arcadia forces. However, is this the real Zero, and is he strong enough to be able to help Seal with all her problems dealing with Neo Arcadia and Mega Man X? I just love that intro so much. It's full of tension, you don't know what's going on, you just see Zero awake as this new badass superhero. It's like I said, it's perfect, and at the same time it sets up that this story is going to be darker than any Mega Man game we've known so far, as we just see a whole army of kind of these puny reploids just getting wiped out by this huge merciless force. So it's really great opening. And because the story is so dark, there was actually cuts made in our North American version compared to what the Japanese version got, as there was a lot of blood in the gameplay, but I'll deal with that shortly in the graphics department, which was what we're moving on to now. The graphics in Mega Man Zero can be summed up in one word: beautiful. The game uses some really good hand-drawing look sprites, as well as some good hand-drawn stills during those cutscenes. What we get is a game that looks perfect on the Game Boy Advance, a 2D masterpiece. Now, if you notice here, it does look a little jagged on your computer screen while I do the YouTube video. That said, Nintendo set up their emulation not to display this on your television, but for you to play it on the gamepad. On the gamepad, it does not look so jagged, just to let you know that. The backgrounds are also beautiful. Now, one of the things I did say in my Mega Man X Let's Play was I really believe that Kenji Inafune was inspired by the old anime called Kashan. However, while X does bear a resemblance to Kashan, I said that his way of defeating enemies, shooting them, is not how Kashan dealt with his enemies. Kashan liked to rip them apart, and it was very violent and brutal in the fighting scenes. With Mega Man Zero, we get that kind of action. While you're still allowed to use a gun, your primary weapon is the beam saber. And when you hit enemies and tear through enemies with the beam saber, just the animation and the effects used for all these enemies dying is lovely, and it's, really brutal. Helps make this game a lot darker than previous Mega Man games. I should also note that because the violence was kind of dark and brutal, the Japanese version even included blood from the enemies. They had to make a few cuts in some of the animations for our North American version to keep the game E-rated. The music and sound effects in the game are top notch. Just take a listen. And the music still sounds good despite the fact that it's on the Game Boy Advance with its small mono speaker. My only complaint is there's one or two small tunes, mainly coming to areas where it's supposed to be either getting dark or quiet, that don't quite work with the Game Boy Advance's sound system, but for the most part the music and sound are just awesome. Now, I'll warn you up front, when it comes to the gameplay of Mega Man Zero, this game is hard. It likes to kill you a lot. And the game even does give you an option to opt out of the harder missions if you want. However, there's a catch. If you don't do some of the harder missions, you won't collect some of the bigger power-ups or be able to access areas just free roaming that might contain energy crystals that you'll need to power Zero up. So just bailing out on a mission will probably leave you worse off towards the end than just dealing with the frustration of having to repeat stages to complete that mission. But let's get on to some of the other basics. Like I said, rather than just picking stages, it's more you're picking a mission. There's only like 3 or 4 areas in the game. They're big areas, but there's only 3 or 4. You have the desert, you'll have a factory, and you'll have a subway, and then you'll have a city landscape to kind of go through and perform these tasks that Seal wants you to do. Completing a task will either give you one of two things. You'll either get a cyber elf, which will help power Zero up if it's fed right and leveled up correctly. You only get to use these once a game, and after that, they're gone. However, some of these guys have permanent effects, like they'll become sub-tanks or they'll permanently increase Zero's health. One of the bigger ones will double your health or make you immune from spikes. So finding these guys and leveling them up is important. Besides the cyber elves, you'll also be getting element chips. Now these are kind of similar to the power-up items from the other Mega Man games, except now there's only 3 and they just kind of work with your basic weapons when charged up. There's fire, lightning, and ice. And it's kind of like paper, rock, scissors. One of them is weaker against another element group, and it kind of simplifies the action compared to past Mega Man games where sometimes you didn't always know what weapon would work on the boss. As far as weapons go, Zero has 4 of them that he will collect. First is the standard buster that you start the game with. Shortly after you start the game, you will collect the Z-Saber, which should be your main weapon throughout. It's fast, it's quick, it melee's easy, and once you level it up, you basically get all Zero skills from Mega Man X4 into the game, and it just becomes real easy. The other 2 aren't as useful in my opinion. One is a really slow spear that Zero can use. It's slightly stronger than the Z-Saber, but its lack of speed and really the fact that you have to point it in a direction really makes it useless compared to the Z-Saber. And the other is a shield that you can throw. I use these so not often enough to even have recorded footage for them, so I'm not going to show them to you, but let me tell you, they're useless compared to the standard Buster and Beam Saber combo. Like I've said before though, this game can be really tough, especially the first time through when you're so underpowered. So expect a tough time. I would be lying if I said I got through this game without abusing the Wii U save system just a little bit. I didn't overly abuse it, but I did use it. It's not Super Ghosts and Goblins. It's not out to try to humiliate you, but it is a really hard game. Do not pick this game up if you're expecting a nice, easy breezy action game. Pick this up if you're someone who wants something a little hardcore. That said, Mega Man Zero is a really, really fun game. I give it a 4 out of 5. Definitely worth a pickup if you're a fan of action platformers. Either get it on the GBA or download it on the Wii U if you have one. Anyways, that's all for this review. If you have any comments on this game, feel free to leave them below. This is Tommy the Keyblade Master signing out.